Hello, my friends, and welcome to Be Again Books. I am Kathleen, and I'm returning today to demonstrate how to create a steampunk style journal, and specifically how to find and collect the materials you need based on the most important elements that define this unique aesthetic. If you decide to use a designer digital kit in your journal, then the hard work is already done for you. But if you, like me, enjoy the challenge of using recycled materials and junk papers and creating the artistic elements yourself, then let me show you how I like to do it. I'm going to refer you to my earlier video on the motifs and the look of steampunk, but I think that there are 6 motifs that are absolutely essential in the world of steampunk, and these are really the thematical elements that truly define this genre. So let's look at gears first. In the steampunk world, gears symbolize the intricate and relentless movement of machinery. They are simply the backbone of the steampunk look. So gears not only add the right visual appeal, but also inspire the mechanical imagination. So you can use them in different ways in your journal with embellishments and pockets and stamp on pages and make ephemera. And so where to find gears? You can find die cuts. You can find stamps. There are embossing folders. There are illustrations in books. This is a digital PNG file image, and I've just overlaid that, expanded and shrunk the image just in a Word document. I use OpenOffice in my house, and it's just easy to insert an image file and then create with it. So that's easy enough to do if you enjoy that. You can find gears sometimes on things. This is a little steampunk playing card. So cool. I found one years and years ago, and just recently Diane Hubert sent me some. What a friend she is. Thank you again, Diane, for letting me have these. I have some stencils that create gears. You can just create it on your own. I've added these little gears on this cute little butterfly die cut. And I want to show you that you can actually buy gears in different places. You know, they come already cut, and you can just use these little gears to make charms and other metal pieces on a cover or on ephemera. But you can also make those yourself. So this is the paper that I showed you how to paint a couple videos ago, and I've just used this little sunburst punch to punch out a couple and then put a metal brad through there, and they become kind of like steampunk flowers, mechanical flowers. This is an old punch that creates this shape of flower, and this ring of holes here in the middle is just very steampunky. So I can add a couple metal gears, and then I've got a cute steampunk embellishment for this journal card. Here I've just created with another steampunk flower with the edges of a doily and 2 other paper flowers, a gear, and a little piece of bling. So these are things that you can do on your own. If you don't have a die cut of gears, you can create a gear just using different sizes of circle punches. You can cut the punch, use scissors, decorative scissors, to cut around the circle. And that gives you an approximation, at least, of a gear. And then you can fold it, if you want, into fourths and then just cut out like a paper snowflake and unfold it, and then there's a gear. You can also do it with things like, this is the top of a peanut can, and I just like that. It reminds me of steampunk, those embossed dots, and gives some texture. This is a soda can, Waterloo sparkling water, and I have just cut out shapes from that. I've embossed this one just in an embossing folder. And then there are the pop top tabs, and those are kind of steampunky as well. So you can approximate these gears and mechanical pieces and create them yourself. While we're on the subject of gears, let's talk about mechanical gadgets. That's the second motif that I think is essential. And you can find paper illustrations from books, things like, this is just out of a book, valve bases. Yeah, and I just think that's kind of a cool illustration. I can use that as a pocket or on a piece of ephemera. I have a book of the Dictionary of Electronics. This is just, I've used the cover already. I just have the guts, but I will take one of these pages and put that as a book page in the journal. But I can also use these illustrations in masterboards and on ephemera. So look for these kinds of books in thrift stores, and sometimes you can get them, especially in the book sale at the library, that kind of thing. My very favorite book that I tear from for steampunk is this encyclopedia of illustration by J.G. Heck. And I was able to find this book, and I just love all of these papers. So, you know, on this page, here's all these kinds of mechanical gadgets and inventions. And steampunk thrives on the time when steam power was cutting edge technology. And so here's it in this is just a history book, but the age of steam, there's a little railroad, but this is a picture of the industrial foundry in 1818 in Cold Spring, New York, and it just shows, here's this enormous gear right here, and they're, you know, making steel for the railroad. And so here are these workers and the fire, and gosh, wouldn't that be a great page if you don't have a kit? There's all kinds of these kinds of books that you can find these old illustrations. So I love that particular book. Another book that I love is The American Science and Invention. I found this in a thrift store, and I have used this a lot in my steampunk journals and pull pages from to include in your steampunk journals. So this is a phantascope of some kind. Here's an illustration of how a sewing machine works. Just different pictures, you know, that you can find of scientific apparatus, machines, simple machines. So keep your eye out for those kinds of things. Paper illustrations from books. This is how I use those kinds of things. I cut them out and create tags and journal cards. Next, we need to talk about clocks. For steampunkers, clocks are more than timepieces. They are the symbols of the relentless march of time and the fusion of past and present. So use clock faces, pocket watches, time-related quotes to embellish your steampunk journal. So where do you find clocks? I have purchased some pocket watch stamps. I have different clock stamps. I found this years ago, a clock embossing folder. I try to get little clock parts when I can and add those to little embellishments like this. I use these papers, these different papers that I can find to, here's a die cut of a pocket watch. You can get images online in many places like clip art. You can get them in digital kits. Sometimes you can find them in designer paper. This is a Stamperia page, and I love it to just cut these out to use in different pieces of ephemera, tags and pockets. This is a pocket with a clock and a little, it's a paper clip, but it looks like a spring to me. And so clocks, very important. The fourth element is we need some Victorian fashion. So steampunk always has characters, and these characters come most often from the Victorian era, and they often have imaginative steampunk modifications like corsets or top hats and bowler hats and lace gloves and brass goggles. All of these bring your character to life, and they set the scene for steampunk adventures. So you can sometimes find die cuts or stamps. Yeah. Illustrations, again, from books and images from the internet. This particular image came from the New York Public Library digital collections. And here is the address, digitalcollections.nypl.org, and you can find old images of the Victorian era. This one is for Sarsaparilla. This one was Harper's September. I was looking in the collection, the posters collection, and found these. Sometimes when you use these free images on the internet, it's hard sometimes to figure out the site's organization method. But once you do, gosh, it's a wealth of image resource in the New York Public Library, on Pixabay, in the Library of Congress. So you can go and print these and use them. Sometimes, again, you can find these kinds of designs and people in different books. I found this in the thrift store. It's like a fancy shoe. Here's a woman. I could really glitz that up, couldn't I? Yeah. So you can find these things different places, these images. There are some books that are particularly lend themselves to steampunk. One is Around the World in 80 Days. And so using illustrations for this book can really steampunk up a journal. This is a book I found called Victorian Comfort. This was out of the thrift store. I paid $3 for it, and it's just filled with different images from the Victorian era that I can use. So finding stamps, that give you these Victorian images. Nicholas Nickleby is another book that has lots of graphics that are perfect for a steampunk, a Victorian steampunk journal. Again, just looking for stamps, and lots of times you have particularly steampunk stamps that you can get. Other times you can just use like vintage things. Here's a reissue of the Sears and Roebuck catalog. So you've got the timepieces, you've got fashion, you've got all kinds of things. Here's the corsets. Yeah, all kinds of things that you can use to kind of make your journal Victorian and vintage. Here's an ad from, this is a real ad from a magazine of that time period, and I've just used that in a collage. This is just a scrap with Victorian kinds of patterns. So let's talk next about vintage transportation. In the steampunk world, travel is an adventure in itself, and with steampunk locomotives racing across the landscape and hot air balloons drifting across the skies and a horseless carriage dodging pedestrians in the streets, these newfangled inventions really symbolize the innovation and an adventurous spirit. And so you can keep your eye out for things like, you know, in a digital kit, you're going to find these kinds of images. And I don't think there's anything wrong with using images. You don't have to use the whole kit if you prefer not, but just selecting certain images from a digital kit, I think, can really help give you the images that you want. There are stamps. Again, this is a stamp of a dirigible. There's stamps of hot air balloons. You can find those pretty easily. You can find different images of bicycles and all the fun ways to get around in the Victorian era, and then use these images in your journal on your elements and pages. Here's a little locomotive stamp. So keep your eye out for those things. And then you can find different die cuts. This is from Hobby Lobby and available currently. And so along with vintage transportation comes the concept of maps. And so you can find these kinds of map pages in atlases. And this is a scrapbook paper, a designer paper. I found this in a thrift store, and it's all about trains, just pictures of trains, big ones, and then they have small ones, and sometimes I will cut them smaller, just use the engine and make, you know, a tag. I've cut a small picture from the book and then used it as an illustration on this layered pocket. So don't forget to use maps and other kinds of stamps and stencils and die cuts, and then words like discovery, explore, journey, adventure. Those kinds of words can help add to this aesthetic. So the final essential motif is numbers. I showed you how I used the train image here, but I also want to point out the numbers. In steampunk, numbers represent precision and scientific research in the age of innovation and invention. So the Victorian age was also the time of the Industrial Revolution. So you had complex equations and intricate calculations and mechanical measurements, and truly numbers drive the steampunk world. So including numbers in various ways adds this layer of authenticity and intellectual fascination. And the beautiful design of vintage numerals and letters also is especially pleasing for steampunkers. So you can find that in papers. These are some rub-ons. I think there's numbers in there also. Here is a little vintage book, Mathematical Tables from Handbook of Chemistry and Physics. And I use these pages a lot especially in my steampunk journals. So look for graphs. This book is also one of my favorites to tear from, and it is just simply it's a concordance to Henry James's The American, and it's just, the whole thing is just numbers, and I always just include a page of this in my signature, because I just like the design of those stripes and the columns of numbers. So I will pull one of those pages out for the signature, and then I also have my favorite stamp, which is the number 25, and so I can use that on things. I can find numbers everywhere, and so I'm just always keeping my eye out for papers that have numbers on them, and then I can use that to create pockets and ephemera. Here's another sheet of rub-ons, numbers. I have stencils, I have stamps. Tim Holtz often comes to our rescue when we're trying to make this kind of thing. Here's his alphabet that is very steampunk kind of font. I also have this page of numbers and this page of numbers that I will put in the signature. So there you have it. 6 essential motifs that define steampunk. If you will embrace these elements in your journal, it will be a masterpiece of mechanical wonder. I'm going to go away and use this stash of items to make my steampunk journal, and then I will be back to do a couple of videos decorating the journal with you. Thanks for being with me. I'll see you again.